So, Liam, the season has officially started. We are a day late, unfortunately, but just work schedules just got in the way, life. But the Jets are coming off a win this weekend. Hockey's underway. Good week so far. How are you?
Been a good week so far, Shades, but still one thing left unchecked, and that's our beloved New York Rangers with the season opener tomorrow in Buffalo. Can't wait. Of course, like you said, an exhilarating Jets victory, much needed Jets victory last week, and I'm excited to put out these season predictions today with you, bud. It's gonna be fun.
Yes, sir. This is episode 48 of Pucks and Brews. As always, I'm your host, Michael Shade Sparacino, alongside my beautiful, brilliant, amazing co-host, Liam the Shellmaster Godimer. And before we start this episode, let me tell you the story I forgot to tell you last week about Shell. So, a couple
I'm
months
ready.
back, me and Brendan went over his house, and then we ended up doing a best out of five with old NHLs. We did NHL '04, NHL, I think 10, and NHL 2014 or 14. Let's just say I came out on top 3-2.
Oh my goodness. I think me and you got to go head to head, man. I know you've had your frustrations with Chell in the past, but you could be the new Chell master.
Maybe of the old games, the new one, I'm just, as soon as Brendan showed me one video, I was just like, nope, never buying this.
Yeah, and those are some classic games there. NHL 14, NHL 10. Play some good ones. So
Yeah, I miss NHL 14 so much, but
great game, great game.
nothing we can do. But before we get underway, I got my usual. I got it going. Got the large cold brew,
I actually have something today.
uh,
Uh,
the
a
Diet
nice
Coke.
crisp cold Diet Coke. Not an endorsement for Diet Coke. I'm more of a Diet Pepsi guy myself, but I'm happy I'm on the drink train with you this episode. Far too many times, parched. So
Yeah, not sponsored. I just really like this, as usual. So, you ready?
let's do it.
All right, here we
Can't
go.
wait to be
So,
wrong, huh?
I say that every single year about my playoff predictions. But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
can't wait to be wrong with regular season predictions as well. So let's start off in the Pacific, out in the West. I'm just going to go based on the current listing of ordered teams on NHL.com. So Vegas Golden Knights are first up, the defending Stanley Cup champions, reigning and defending in just what was in just awesome team last year from top to bottom. What are your thoughts on them this year?
It's hard not to like Vegas, right? Coming off of their first Stanley Cup victory, their second appearance in the Stanley Cup final since becoming a team in the NHL. They weren't really dominant last year. They had a great playoff run where everything came together. Aiden Hill was excellent for them. Their top players were playing as they should. But again, even losing Riley Smith in the offseason, they're still a very well-rounded group, and that's on the back end and that's up front too. My only issue is with Aiden Hill, but hey, last night in game one against the Seattle Kraken, he looked great. So for me, there's no reason not to put the Vegas Golden Knights first in the Pacific. So I think that one's pretty easy.
Yeah, actually, Aiden Hill helped out my fantasy team last night, so thank you, Aiden Hill.
Hey, it's keeping the run going.
Yeah,
Okay,
please keep it going. My fantasy team needs it. I'm playing my boy Charlie this week, and I do not want to fucking lose first week. So,
we'll see.
all right, I'm gonna go a little bit in a weird order. I'm gonna go with through every team, and then at the end, I'll do like an eight through one. So that's just the way I feel like doing it. If you don't like it, oh well. All right, next up, Anaheim Ducks, the basement of the Pacific Division last year. I don't really see too much difference this year around. I mean, they added Radko Gudas and Alex Killorn, who is currently on injured reserve, not needle movers. And with the way the rest of that division is, outside of San Jose, I can 100% see this team finishing close to the bottom of the league again.
For me, Shades, the only bright spot with the Anaheim Ducks offseason, signing Trevor Zegras. And
Yeah,
again, you got him at a pretty decent cap hit. What did they get him at? 5.75 million over 3 years. So for me, I think that's exactly the ballpark, maybe a little bit under what I expected Zegras to get. But as far as their ability to compete in the Pacific Division, I just don't see it. I'm very much on the same wavelength as you. The back end is very inexperienced. Up front, you add a multiple time Stanley Cup winner and Alex Killorn, but that's great. But this is also a rebuilding young roster. Sometimes you got to call a spade with this group, and the Anaheim Ducks should finish close to the basement of the Pacific this year. So.
Yeah, Zegras was in fact 3 by 5.75, and the only really name they acquired was Ilya Labushkin, and that was back in August. Just this is basically a year going through the motions for them again.
For sure. And you look at their back end, right? Outside of one player, Camp Fowler, who I really like, and quite frankly, and you can tell me if you disagree, but I think he's going to be one of the most impactful names at the trade deadline this year.
Yeah.
He has been a great top four defenseman for an Anaheim Ducks team that has struggled, of course, over the last few years as they've entered this rebuild. But outside of that, you have Jamie Drysdale, who high draft pick, but struggled last year. Matko Gudis, okay, coming over from the Florida Panthers, but not a needle mover, like you said. Ilya Labushkin had a cup of coffee with Arizona and Toronto, wasn't able to stick. And again, outside of that, there's really nobody to ride home about. So for me and this team, it all starts on the back end. And outside of Cam Fowler and John Gibson, there's not really much, to get excited for. So decent forward group, but young team, and this is just where they're at this point. So.
Yeah. So where do you got them?
At the end of the day, I have the Anaheim Ducks. Let's see here. A team worse than Anaheim? No, I think they're the worst team. So maybe San Jose, maybe it'll be close, but I don't want to give that away. But I think they'll finish it.
All right. Calgary Flames, a team last year who had basically a terrible yet great offseason at the same time. The terrible referring to losing Gaudreau and Tkachuk, the great referring to the damage control they did with all those negatives, with losing those two names. They honestly, keeping Sutter ended up being a mistake. Markstrom had let's face it, a terrible year compared to what he should have had. And it was just a team that just felt, I don't know if lost is the right word, but I can't think of a better one at the moment.
Yeah, I think they had a lost season last year. And Daryl Sutter was behind the bench. Didn't last long. And again, all the guys that they brought in the offseason that, their front office thought was going to make a big impact on the team, it didn't really happen. Jonathan Huberdeau really struggled in his first year in a new environment, of course, coming over from the Florida Panthers in the Matthew Tkachuk trade. Nazem Kadri came over in free agency. He was terrible. Didn't really have a great year. I wouldn't say terrible, but didn't have as good of a year or good of years as he did when he was with the Colorado Avalanche. So, and outside of that, this forward group is a little bit thin. I love Elias Lindholm, great player. Matthew Coronado, good young player. Blake Coleman, of course, we know what he's done with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I like the defense a lot, which I think is going to help them be competitive. I'm a big fan of Mackenzie Weegar. Was a big fan in Florida. And ever since he went over to Calgary, he was just one of those guys, one of those new guys that went to the Flames and really stuck. And as far as Markstrom, again, I'm with you. He struggled last year, and he needs to show that he can rebound. But for me, at the end of the day, I'm going to have Calgary sixth in the Pacific.
Interesting. All right, on to the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid's Edmonton Oilers. Well, you saw them dominate in the first round last year. Then you saw them move on in the second round Wait, did they play LA first round?
Yes, they did.
All right, excuse me. You saw them squeak out of the first round and then dominate in the second round against Calgary. And then they played a real team in Vegas and got murdered.
Yep.
There's really no other better way to put that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with Edmonton, there's a lot of question marks, and it's kind of when's it all going to click for this Oilers team? I mean, they are supremely talented. I mean, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I mean, I don't have to say anything else other than their names. Zach Hyman, of course, how good he was on Toronto, and you can say what you want about his contract, but he's a nice complementary piece. The back end, Evan Bouchard is really blossoming into a really solid young defenseman. Darnell Nurse, again, you say what you want, 9.5 million a year. He's going to have his critics getting paid that much. But for me, Shades, it all lies with the goaltending. And I'm not sold, to be honest with you. And it's pretty crazy that I'm saying this, but I think they're going to finish third in the Pacific. So
I don't think that's crazy at all because I don't know, it just since McDavid's been there, it's been just such a disappointment with them in terms of both regular season standings and success in the playoffs. But I need to believe in their goaltending because I have Stuart Skinner on one of my fantasy teams. And knowing my luck with goaltending in fantasy, I I have to have hope here, or else what the hell am I doing?
right on. But for me, I don't think he's the answer. I know
Yeah,
it's not probably what you want to hear, but I think at the trade deadline, um, Edmonton needs to upgrade at that position. It's time.
yeah,
It's been that way for many years, and quite frankly, when you look at the reason why they've gotten knocked out of the playoffs the last few runs, it's hard not to point at the goaltending. So for me, this is a make or break year for the Oilers. They'll still make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to have as good of a season as they did this past year.
I agree with you on that one. On to the LA Kings, who, in my opinion, surprised last season because they had a bunch of that. That's a team with a lot of good young players with a nice veteran mix. But in my personal opinion, I thought they overachieved a little last season. That's just me. Going into this season compared to last year, I am significantly less sold on their goaltending now compared to post deadline, where they picked up Jonas Corposalo, who is now an Ottawa Senator. But even with Kempe and Fiala and Arvidsson, and I think Deneau is on them now too. They have a lot of good complementary pieces, but I don't know, man. I got a gut feeling that they're gonna have a disappointing season.
I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. I agree with you as far as the goaltending is concerned. I like what they had in Corpusalo. I didn't love what they had, but I feel like bringing in Cam Talbot is a little bit of a lateral move. So I do agree with you there. Again, like he's what? How old is he now? He's 36 years old. You have Phoenix Copley backing him up. There's really not a lot of depth there. But Shades, I look at this forward group and I just say, wow, oh wow. Quinton Byfield reaches his potential this season or comes up close to it to the type of player that he is going to become, I think the Kings are going to have a really solid year. Because again, if you are solid down the middle, you will have success in this league. And quite frankly, even at his age, Anze Kopitar is 36 years old. He is still a top end center. And that, invaluable experience he's giving to a young player like Quinton Byfield, it's huge. And then you look at your third line center, it's Philip Deneau, who is still one of the best two-way centers in the league. So I love this forward group. I'm a big fan of Trevor Moore, huge fan of Blake Lazat. Victor Arvidsson can still score goals. This is a good team. Pierre-Luc Dubois comes over in the offseason from the Winnipeg Jets. I think a lot of people are overlooking that move. We've talked about it at length, at nauseum. Pierre-Luc Dubois and his potential issues in the locker room. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, I just listed four centers. Four centers. One of them's going to have to get knocked off to the wing. And I think that's only going to make this team more powerful and better. The back end concerns me a little bit. Of course, I love Drew Doughty, but he's getting older. He's on the wrong side of 30. I think he's, 34 years old now. Vladislav Gavrikov, coming over from the Blue Jackets. He was a top four defenseman, but again, you don't really know what you're going to get, from a guy coming from a team like the Blue Jackets that really struggled. So this is a very interesting team, but I'm going to put my faith into the Kings, and they're going to finish second in the division.
Second, okay, that's a little ballsy in my opinion, but I like it being bold. But I'll get back to
Their
my
goaltending
ranking
can
on them.
stand up. Their goaltending can hold up. We'll see.
See, I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I don't think it can. So, like I
Well,
said, at the end, I'll do an 8-1. I might surprise you. Next up, the pitiful San Jose Sharks, who just basically gifted Erik Karlsson to the Penguins. Sharks can go to hell for that. It's a team that, let's be honest, they didn't improve much, if at all.
No, they really didn't. And this is a clear-cut rebuild
Oh yeah.
from this team. So there's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at their roster. I mean, outside of Tomas Hurdle and Luke Cunnin, there's not really a lot of recognizable NHL names on there. Sure, Nico Sturm, Mikael Granlund, who is a cap dump coming over from the Penguins in that aforementioned Carlson trade. Um, you know, they bring in um, from the name is escaping me now. Igor Sharangovich comes over from the New Jersey Devils as well. I mean, they make a couple minimal transactions, but besides that, nothing to write home about. This team's going to finish seventh. I think it's going to be close at the bottom of the division between the Sharks and the Ducks. So.
Wait, Sharon Govich isn't I think you got the wrong team here. Was it the Red Wings?
I thought it was the Sharks. I could be wrong.
Hold on, hold on. Uh
Excuse me.
Tyler, no. For I think it was the Flames and the
Got the teams mixed up there.
I do have the teams mixed up here. I think it's Oilers and Red Wings. No, Flames and Devils. Jesus, mother of God. How did I get all right? This
Bottom line,
this is what the cold brew's for.
Sharks seventh in the division. That's where I got it.
All right, up next, we got the Vancouver Canucks, who I just looked at the standings from last year. I did not realize just how close they were to a playoff spot last year.
They were very close. I liked the Canucks for a long time.
Yeah, dude, the Canucks are such a weird team, man. Every time they look like they're going to take a step forward, it's like a mini lateral step back. And every time it looks like they're going to take a ginormous step back, it's more of like a lateral move where nothing really happens. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is weird, but I'm going to put my faith in the Canucks this year. I like the team. I think they're going to be better. I think, again, you talk about a team that potentially overachieved last year, in the Los Angeles Kings. I think I can look at the Vancouver Canucks and argue that they were a team that underachieved a little bit. And I think with their head coaching turmoil and everything that happened with that, you can't forget that this is still a team with Elias Pettersson. This is still a team with Quinn Hughes. And this is still a team with Thatcher Demko. And yes, do they have holes to fill on all ends? Yes, they do. But I think that this Pacific Division is wide open, and quite frankly, the Western Conference is wide open when you look at the wild cards and the opportunity. And for me, I think Vancouver is going to take advantage of that. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they are going to be in the conversation. So
yep, 100%. And then last but not least, to finish off the Pacific Division, we got the surprising in the playoffs last year. Seattle Kraken released the Kraken. Put up a great fucking fight in the playoffs last year. They were an awesome team to watch. And hell, they might do even better this year.
I mean, they had a tough night last night, so we'll certainly see. But again, you talk about the Los Angeles Kings, again, a team that overachieved in your mind. I think Seattle overachieved last year. And I think they're due for a little bit of a regression. I'm not really sold on their goaltending. I'm not sold on Philip Grubauer. They don't have Martin Jones anymore, I don't believe. A lot of young players, and again, guys that are motivated. You look at Jared McCann. You look at Jamie Alexiak. And other guys. This is a team that wants to build upon their round victory in last year's playoffs. Of course, coming just short. Who did they lost to the Stars, right? I believe in Game 7. So again, I think they're going to finish fifth in the division. They're due for a little bit of regression, but they're going to be in the conversation. Still a talented group, but I don't think they're going to have as good of a year as they did last season.
Although, I don't know, man. We've seen so many weird things happen where a team is just surprised. And Grubauer is just a weird goalie. He'll either have a great regular season or a terrible one. But there is one common denominator with him. He will never show up in the playoffs.
100%. 100%. So, and again, season predictions are so tough for a reason. So that's why, if anybody watching, or if you're wondering why I kind of went off the board a little bit with my Kings pick in second place, it's because it's the NHL and there's a lot of parity in this league, and sometimes going with the say foregone conclusions from the NHL community sometimes you just got to pave your own path. So I
Yeah,
like box picks, but I'm excited and intrigued to hear yours. So
yeah, I
have
went with the surefire pick of the Bruins to win the cup last year. That was a mistake, but I digress. All right. Number 8, not surprising. The Ducks. Number 7, not surprising. The Sharks. Number 6, may or may not be surprising, but I just lost all faith in that team. Calgary. Number 5, LA. Number 4, Seattle. Number 3, Vancouver. Number 2, Edmonton. Number 1, Vegas. I'm going a little rogue here because I'm trying to anticipate being one or two teams wrong. So that's what I'll say.
Shades, I like it, and I'm happy that we're on the same page as far as the Vancouver pick, in that we both think they're going to have a good year. So again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Of course, I have Vancouver finishing fourth, a little bit lower. I have Los Angeles in second. You have Vancouver in third. So I think it's going to create a lot of intrigue for the rest of the regular season. So
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I forgot to take notes of this. But did you take notes?
No.
Okay, 8. I'm just gonna do this real quick. That way, I can have something to go back to later in the episode because notice I did not do one thing, and that was I did not say which 4 or 5 seeds yet are going to make the playoffs. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
So that again,
Keep that in mind. All
we
right, so I had the Kings there. I had the Oilers second and Sharks. All right, I'll come back to this so I don't waste any more time. So we are moving on to the Central Division. And well, let's start off with the team that's listed first, the number 1 overall pick, Connor Bedard's, the Chicago Blackhawks.
the 1-0 Chicago Blackhawks.
The 1-0 indeed. And the 1-0 Blackhawks that I put a bet on for Bedard to get 2 points and he only got 1, so I lost, but I digress.
Well, there will be plenty of other nights where I imagine Bedard will have 2 points. So
Oh yeah.
always a chance to place that bet again.
There is, and there 100% will be. So obviously, they got Bedard, Perry, Foligno, a lot of old guys, but you look at this team on paper still, and there is just so much building left to be done. This team is nowhere close to competing for a playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to be as bad as last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Bedard is, he's going to help this group. I would imagine, gain an extra, 6 points in the standings. But again, you have a group like the Blackhawks who finished as far below the playoff line as they did last season. A 6 point jump, isn't going to really do much for you. I think there's decent complementary pieces around Bedard. I like Taylor Hall a lot, of course, a former Hart Trophy winner. Ryan Donato, I've always been a fan of. Andreas Athanasiou, I love his speed. Corey Perry, it's good to have a veteran on that power play unit on that first line. Alongside Connor Bedard, I believe you have Nick Foligno over there as well, who's wearing an ace. So there is leadership on this team. I do think that they are setting up Connor Bedard for success. Seth Jones never liked the contract. The defense is pretty hard. When Jared Tenorti is playing top 4 minutes, um, but Peter Mrazek and Soderblom was pretty good in Rockford with the Ice Hogs last season. So maybe their goaltending situation is a little bit better than it's been in past years. But we'll see. I still think this team is going to be the bottom of the barrel though in the Central Division. And kind of looking up and down, I think they're going to finish 7th. That's my pick for the Hawks.
On to the Arizona Coyotes, where Logan Cooley is the hot name there right now, along with Sean Dursey on the back end, who had a pretty good year last year. That was a solid pickup by them. But I'm gonna say what I said about Anaheim right now. It's a team going through the motions right now. They're gonna be kind of stuck in limbo for a little bit.
they are going to be stuck in limbo. But again, there's good pieces. Logan Cooley, I mean, how can you not be impressed with him? Barrett Hayton, he has some more time to kind of grow into the player he's going to become. Clayton Keller is a superstar. So there are some pieces on this Coyotes team. Unfortunately, their time to compete is not going to be anytime soon, and they're going to finish last in the Central, in my opinion.
On to the Colorado Avalanche, 2022 Stanley Cup champ Colorado Avalanche, who, let's face it, I mean, having Landeskog out did not help them against Seattle last year. I'm pretty sure they had other guys out too, but still a solid team. You still got Nathan MacKinnon, you still got Rantanen, you still got a whole lot of pieces of just great hockey players on that team. And I'm just gonna, without spoiling my ranking, I think they're gonna be back in the playoffs.
This is a great Colorado Avalanche team. And like you said, even with missing Gabriel Landeskog last season, certainly they struggled, but they still found a way. And when you look at this group, you look down the middle. I mean, Nathan MacKinnon is a top three player in the world. In the world, Nathan MacKinnon. So, I mean, whenever you have that, again, you're set up for success. Then you have Tomas Tatar, who has been a top six piece in the past. That's good to add. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get out of Valerie Nichushkin after his situation in the playoffs last year. I think he's a little bit of a wild card, so that kind of brings me down a little bit as far as the Avalanche is concerned. But again, this is a team with a ton of depth, star power up front, like you mentioned, Mikko Rantanen. Oh, and then you look on the defensive side of the puck, and there's just Cale Makar and Bowen Byram and Sam Gerard just sitting there.
And Josh Manson and Devon Taves.
Yeah, and Devontae's, and you just look at 4 or 5 guys that could, legitimately be on 20 or 25 teams' top pairs. That's how good that defense is. And again, Alexander Georgiev in net, we know for being Rangers fans. And again, it upsets me to say because he's no longer here. It's frustrating when he beats us. I think we went 1-1 against him in his first year against Colorado. He's a good goaltender. And he is a team that could lead the Avalanche back to the Stanley Cup. So it's a very, very good Avs team, and I think they're going to finish first.
Just for the sake of my sanity, I hope that doesn't happen because I would blow a gasket like never before.
But then
But
the Rangers beat them, and it's all good.
yeah, that would be good. On to the well, actually, no, that would be fucking fantastic because that mean we win the cup. So
Yeah, but
yeah, so on to the Dallas Stars, who honestly, I fucking love this team. I'll be honest with you, I was down on this team going into last year, and then they completely shattered my expectations in the playoffs last year. Ottinger, well, this is mostly Ottinger specifically. This is mostly going back to the 2022 playoffs where he just went absolutely fucking off against Calgary. Unfortunately, he could not score any goals in that series, or else they really would have done some damage that year. But this team is just fucking stacked, man. Their back end alone, I love. Heiskanen and Lindell is a fucking great top pair. Suter, while he's on the back end, he still provides serviceable minutes. Hakanpää has developed into a very good defenseman. Niels Lundqvist, of course, another ex-Ranger, has developed into a good defenseman. And then Thomas Harley and Joel Hanley to round that out. And then just while I'm not completely sold on half of their forward group, the other half, namely Rupe Hintz, Mason Marchment, Jason freaking Robertson, Radek Faksa, and Ty Dellandrea. This team has a fucking bright future, man.
and then Matt Duchene as well. So
Yep.
you could just throw in a top six forward right into that mix.
Notice the three names that I left out.
Yeah.
Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, and Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy that with that said, I think the Stars are due for a regression. And again, I'm not refuting anything that you said because everything that you said is accurate. I love Jason Robertson as a player. I just told you that why Matt Duchene was a great pickup. They bring up Stan Steele as well, who is going to be a nice compliment to the bottom six. Huge fan of Jake Ottinger. But for me, I'm going to have him take a little bit of a dip this season. they're going to finish third in the Central. So
And that brings us to the other team that wears green, the Minnesota Wild. I know that was terrible. Shoot me. But this is
that
a
was pretty
team
bad.
that,
That was pretty bad.
yeah, that was pretty bad. So this is a team that surprised me last season with just how well they ended up doing during the regular season. But I mean, when you have Kirill Kaprizov and my boy Matt Zuccarello, I mean, what can go wrong?
This is an elite team, Shades. I am a big, big fan of the Minnesota Wild. And that's surprising because for a long time, I really wasn't. I'll start at the goaltending, right? Marc-Andre Fleury comes over to Minnesota, and, everybody expects him to be the starting goaltender. And then last year, like you said, the Minnesota Wild fell into quite a bit of success. And the reason was not Marc-Andre Fleury, it was Phil Gustafson in net, who really established himself as a number one goaltender. And Shades, like, tell me if you disagree, but I think with Minnesota, like so many teams around the league, it's just been finding that number one goaltender. It's not the defense, it's not the forward group, it's about finding stable goaltending. And I feel like they found that in Philip Gustafson. You look on the back end, it's a nice mix of veterans and young players. Kalen Addison, who came over from the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Jason Zucker trade, he is a nice young right shot defenseman. Brock Faber, of course, he had an outstanding collegiate career. He's, on the first year, second year of his ELC. Jared Spurgeon takes over as the captain for this team. Jonas Brodin, who's been really good for a long time. I'm not worried about the defense at all. And then you go up front, like you said, Kirill Kaprizov, star power across the board. Top five winger in the league at this point. Matthew Boldy, I think, is really molding himself into the conversation of like the top 20, 25 centers. And, for a player who's that young into his NHL career, like that's a really solid step for them. So I am going to put my money where my mouth is, Shades, and I'm going to take the Minnesota Wild second in the Central.
All right, I like it. I like it. We go on to the St. Louis Blues, who this team ain't going anywhere with Jordan Binnington.
No, they're not. No, they're not, Shades.
This team is not what it once was.
Not what it once was. Not far from that Stanley Cup team in 2019.
Yeah.
Jordan Binnington, again, like we just mentioned with Aiden Hill. Again, he had a great playoff run. He had a great first game. But I remember Jordan Binnington kind of doing the same thing. And then similar to Vegas, Jordan Binnington got rewarded like Aiden Hill did with a pretty big extension, 6 year, I believe, $36 million extension at the time for Jordan Binnington, which is just absolutely insane. With that said, I do like some of the young players on this team. Big Jordan Kyrou fan. Buchnevich, it hurts. I'm sure it hurts you.
Still hurts.
Oh, once a Ranger, always a Ranger, right? Jacob Vrana.
I would just like to point out that so far the Rangers have lost both Sammy Blais trades. Surprisingly, not surprisingly.
Yes, they have. I would say not surprisingly as well. And again, you look at this back end. I like Justin Falk, like Colton Parayko, but that's about it.
See, here's the thing. I actually really, really like this team on paper. You just said Justin Falk and Colton Parayko. Solid top pair. Solid top pair. Torrey Krug and Nick Leddy still have something left in the tank. But it's just the goaltending is going to hold this team back, like understandably so, and I think that's pretty straightforward. But like you said, Kyrou, fantastic young player. Robert Thomas, great young player. Braden Shen, still very productive player. Our boy Buchnevich, Brandon Saad could still do it. Kevin Hayes, I think, is going to be a nice addition to that team. They got Kapanen and Vrana, and Sammy Blais, the moment he went back there, remembered how to play hockey again. If they had a goaltender similar to, I would say probably closer to Philip Gustafson, this might be a playoff team.
Yeah, I still think they're going to finish towards the bottom of the Central, to be honest. Again, there are some good pieces here, but I think, what you mentioned about Torrey Krug and Nick Leddy having good years, I think it's just a little bit of a stretch. I think Nick Leddy has just had a significant drop off. Nick Leddy's been a good player, but Torrey Krug, I'm just not sold on. Love the forward group though, but for me, the goaltending is what's going to bring them down in the end, and I'm going to take them sixth in the Central.
Two more teams left. Stay tuned for where I have them. So Winnipeg Jets up next, seventh team on this list. This team still loaded up front loaded in net with I almost said Connor Bennington, Jesus, Connor Hellebuck. And still, I mean, they got a solid defense. Last year, I mean, obviously they were going through the Dubois locker room bullshit and all that crap. But I mean, Morrissey had a frigging fantastic year, career year by far. Nate Schmidt still solid defenseman. Pionk has, let's be honest, he's developed into a nice two-way defenseman. He just honestly just bad timing with the Rangers.
Great.
And then Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, I mean, just they fit that team. And Logan Stanley, the young defenseman on the back end. I mean, this is a nice team. It really is.
I am a very big fan of the Winnipeg Jets, and I have been a fan of the Winnipeg Jets for a number of years. This core has pretty much stayed together, right?
Yeah.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, of course, there for a cup of coffee after coming over with Columbus. It just never worked out. We spoke about it again at nauseum, via the locker room issues. But you look up front, like Kyle Connor is an absolutely elite winger. Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck get signed to identical extensions, and that's huge for this Winnipeg Jets team. Again, like Connor Hellebuck you could argue that Hellebuck is a top two goalie in the league, top three goaltender in the league. So to be able to lock him down alongside a number one center, Mark Scheifele, I mean, that's huge. Of course, it pains me to say it, but two former Rangers and Morgan Barron and Neil Pionk, again, you said Neil Pionk has developed into a solid two-way defenseman. Couldn't put it any better myself, Shades. And it's disappointing. We saw sparks of that when he was with the Rangers. Again, it just wasn't good timing. But I will say this. Your boy does have a Neil Pionk jersey. So, no, I was always a fan since day one.
I like it. And you did bring up Morgan Barron. Morgan Barron has developed into a very effective bottom six forward. And I was very upset when the Rangers got rid of him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, he was the fringe prospect at the time. He was spending a lot of time at Hartford on the top line, but there wasn't really a spot. But again, I think you can look back on in hindsight and say he was a player that you probably should have kept around. And again, let's not forget about the players that the Jets got back in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. They get Alex Buffalo in return. They get Gabe Belardi in return. And again, those are two players that maybe haven't. Again, Iafallo is a really good player. I know you're a fan. But maybe Velarde hasn't really blossomed into the prospect that he once was. But again, those are two players that's worth taking a flyer on. Again, for me, having two players that you can stick in your top six, out of your top six, in exchange for one that might not have been a good fit with your team, I think that's a win for Winnipeg. So
yeah, don't forget about Rasmus Kupari also.
Yeah, Kupari too. A good year last year.
Yeah, and Cole Perfetti's still 21 years old. A lot of upside. Dude, this team is great on paper. It's just, are they going to be able to put it all together?
I'm going to take Winnipeg fourth in the division here. So.
All right. I like it. And last but not least, the Nashville Predators, who had they had some really good parts of the offseason, some very puzzling parts of the offseason, but still a decent team on paper. It just didn't work out last year for whatever reason. I mean, their defense on paper still very good. They still got Yossi McDonough, as well as Lauzon and who's the fourth guy again? But this team still very good team on paper. I mean, yes, they bought out Matt Duchene because of he has a history of locker room issues, but they brought in Tyson Barrie. Honestly, Luke Shen has turned it around a little bit. Solid addition to the back end there. Dante Fabro, still a good young player. And here's the thing with the forward group. They have a select few good names, but I just feel like something's missing.
Yeah, I feel like that extra punch is missing in this national group. But again, they're trying to compete, and this is a competitive Central Division. I mean, gone through all of the teams, and again, like even if you look at the teams that I've predicted to be at the bottom of the division, I mean, St. Louis. I mean, we just talked about how they're a pretty good roster on paper if they can get their goaltending figured out. The Coyotes and the Blackhawks, who have two of the best young players in the league, and you can't write them off either. But for me, Nashville, they bring in Ryan O'Reilly. Right, that's huge. He immediately becomes an alternate captain. This is a young team. on paper. There are a lot of players that are going to need guidance and leadership. And you look at players like Luke Evangelista, you look at Thomas Novak, you look at Kiefer Sherwood, Philip Tomasino. I think having Ryan O'Reilly around is going to pay dividends in respect to those young players. And again, on the back end, you could say, that it's a little bit, guys that are older. You have Roman Yossi, who's fantastic, but still at 33 years old. Ryan McDonough at 34 years old. Tyson Berry at 32 years old. Luke Shen at 33. I don't know. I think you're putting a lot of faith into to some older players. But again, UC Saros, sometimes your goaltender will keep you in it.
Oh
And
yeah.
expect that to be the case for Nashville. So again, a competitive roster and a competitive division. That's my consensus with the Preds.
Oh,
I'm going to take them fifth.
oh yeah. Yeah. UC Soros is definitely going to keep this team in the mix.
For sure.
But I think they are going to fall short. So you ready for my 8 through 1?
I'm ready. I think we're going to match up pretty well. So I'm intrigued to see.
Number 8, Chicago Blackhawks. Number 7, Arizona Coyotes. Number 6, St. Louis Blues. Number 5, Nashville Predators. Number 4, Winnipeg Jets. Number 3, Colorado Avalanche. Number 2, Minnesota Wild. And number 1, Dallas Stars.
All right. All right. I think we went 7 for 8 there. That's pretty good. What's give me your reasoning behind Colorado. What's your thought process there?
Well, Landeskog's out again, unfortunately. And my prediction, again, this is one of those where I'm trying to predict wrong on purpose, hoping I'm right. So,
For sure.
yeah, I'm trying
I
to
like the
offset.
picks. I do. And again, you're putting a lot of faith in the Stars. And again, I look up and down the Dallas's lineup, and I mean, they check out
Yeah.
every single step of the way. Lines 1 through 4, defense pairings 1 through 3,
Okay.
and both goaltenders, quite frankly, and the guy behind the bench too, and Pete DeBoer. So
Yeah, which was something I was not saying about the Stars 2 years ago. Quite the opposite, in fact.
me too. Me too.
But hey, they've turned my head the last 2 years. So
On
now,
to the East, huh?
well, hold on.
You're
So,
wild.
so
Yeah.
obviously, the Stars Wild Avalanche and the Knights Canucks, and I misspelled that so badly. I put Likers in second for Pacific. That is not who I. No, that is a bad typo. No, I gotta fix that right now.
Hmm.
I don't even remember who the Oilers. There we go. Likers, Jesus. So I had Vegas, Edmonton, and Vancouver 1, 2, 3 in the Pacific, with the wild cards being, drum roll please, the Kraken and the Jets,
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
with the Kings and the Predators just missing out.
Yep. And for me, I got Winnipeg and Vancouver here. So
Yeah, no, the West wild card race is going to be a dogfight, and I'm here for it.
hmm absolutely. No, I'm a big fan of this division.
Oh
This
yeah,
couple conference, to be honest.
oh yeah,
Pacific a little less so, but again, this Central's got me excited.
oh yeah, same. And we're on to the Eastern Conference. So the team first, got to start with the list. Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, early exit last year. They still got pretty much their entire core. Braden Point may or may not be healthy. They still got Vasilevsky, but I mean, this is still a solid team. Last year, it's just you can tell by the end of the regular season that the consecutive long playoff runs caught up with them.
Yeah, for me, Shades, I don't know. I sit here and I just don't know. And again, after years of dominance from the Tampa Bay Lightning, this might be the year. I don't know. I'm not saying they're going to fall out of my top 3, but I'm not saying they're going to fall out of my top 3. Jonas Johansson is the goaltender for the time being in Tampa Bay.
Mm.
Again, this is a team that is absolutely stacked up front. You look at Braden Point, you look at Nikita Kucherov, but you also have a disgruntled Steven Stamkos. You know, you have a goaltending situation that, quite honestly, is in turmoil. You have a season last year that ended in a loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had not won a playoff series in 20 years. I think this is the season, if there is going to be a season, where this core of Tampa Bay Lightning players take a little bit of a step back. Now, I'm not a big fan of how you started with Tampa Bay because that's kind of my hottest pick, so I'm going to wait. Uh, I'll wait until the end, like you, to go 8-1 for my division
All right, I will allow it. Boston Bruins up next, the team that set the record last year for most wins in a season, most points in a season, and then had an absolutely disgraceful exit in the playoffs, and still not as bad as the Lightning a couple years back, but still pretty bad.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of pieces, especially pretty much everyone post deadline, except I want to say except no, Hampus Lindholm was a off-season acquisition the year before, who had a great year last year, by the way. But it was just a guy. It was just a team that they had a lot of career years from a lot of different guys. They had a lot of last hurrahs, specifically Bergeron and Krejci. And I mean, just they went all in and it failed miserably. And like I said, lost everyone. And I remember what I said last year about the Bruins, Liam.
I don't. Let
I
me know.
said that it was going to be the year that they start to fall off and miss the playoffs. And I could not have been any further wrong, but I'm going to go back to that prediction this year because, like I said, they lost an absolute crap ton, and I don't think they got it back. And I think last year was a fluke, let's be honest with you.
Yeah, for me, Boston, this roster kind of leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest. Of course, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, nothing else really needs to be said. Those are two of the top, end players in the league. But again, you look under that, no David Krejci, like you said, going on to retirement. Patrice Bergeron, same thing. And what did you really replace them with, right? You replaced them with James Van Riemsdyk. How old is James Van Riemsdyk again? 34 years old. Milan Lucic, that's nice. That's a good PR,
Yeah.
signing, bringing Lucic back at the end of his career at 35. But how much of an impact is he really going to make? I don't really think much. I like Jake DeBrusk. I like Trent Frederick, but I don't like them enough to come even close to where they were last year. On the back end, big Hampus Lindholm fan, big Charlie McAvoy fan. But besides that, you're putting faith in Ian Mitchell, Kevin Shattenkirk, Derek Forbert to kind of solidify this top six. Kind of leaves a little bit to be desired for me. Linus Allmark and Jeremy Swayman. I think Allmark's going to have a regression this year. I do. That's my hot take. I mean, he had as good of a season as any goaltender did last year statistically, but I don't think he's going to have nearly as good a season. So I think the Bruins are going to take quite a dip this.
All right. All right. Up next, Buffalo Sabres. I think this is finally the year, Liam. I think this is finally
But
the year.
I couldn't agree with you more. For me, I mean, this team has been showing signs, Shades,
Yes.
and none so more than last season when this team really came together. Rasmus Dahlin, let me just start in the back end.
Yeah.
Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, they have some, holes to fix up past that. I like Matthias Samuelson. I like Henry Jokiharju. But again, you need some more consistent minutes out of those guys. But you look at those two top end players. I mean, wow. I mean, Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin, it's going to be hard to figure out which player is really going to be better. Dahlin just got signed to an $11 million contract, which, is hefty. Is hefty, but, he's earned it. He really has. He's become, a top end defenseman in the league, and he had a really, really good season last year. The goaltending, Devin Levi, it clings on Devin Levi's shoulders whether this Buffalo Sabres team is going to meet their potential. And he looked fantastic last year. You have Eric Comrie, who performed well, veteran guy, and Pekka Luukkonen, who
Still
is
one of the best names in hockey.
that is a great name and always fun when the Rangers play the Sabres and Sam Rosen tries to get that.
Yeah, unfortunately,
He
rest
does
in peace to Sabres play-by-play announcer Rick
for Jared.
Jaron. Yeah, I always forget how to pronounce his last name, but I will miss his calls because he was legitimately one of my favorite announcers. So
Yeah, he was. Rest in peace for sure. But as far as the Sabres team, again, stacked up front. Tage Thompson, Peyton Krebs, Dylan Cousins, uh, Victor
Alex
Olofsson,
Tuck.
Alex Tuck. Jordan Greenway came over from the Minnesota Wild. It's a really good forward group, Shades.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of faith in Buffalo.
Hey, don't forget about JJ Paterka too, man. 21 years old, a lot of
He,
upside.
he played great in Rochester last year. He played well in his short time with Buffalo as well. So I'm excited for him.
Hey, let it be known that I did see JJ Paterka in an AHL game. I think it was last season.
Okay, cool.
It,
So
not okay, not it was 2021, 2022, not 22, 23. But
gotcha.
yeah, but hey, I saw that kid in the AHL. Did he have the greatest game? No, but I mean that happens with everybody. But dude, Tage Thompson, 50 goals. Dylan Cousins is the real deal. If Jeff Skinner can score 20 goals, this team is a playoff team. Because if he can score 20, the rest of the forward group can hold their end of the bargain.
And I think he can score more than 20. I think he can be a 30 goal scorer because he has been. You say what you want about the contract. What is he getting paid? $9 million. Still has some pretty significant term left on it. But again, Jeff Skinner's been consistent. It's not like he's been one of these dead weight contracts. He's been a real good player for Buffalo. So I think he's going to only help their pursuit of a playoff spot.
Yep. And Jack Quinn is on injured reserve to start the season. Good young player, man. A sniper that can put up goals, and he's only 22.
First round pick. Yep.
Yep. Which
Uh,
you hated at the time. I remember.
I was not a fan of the Jack Quinn selection, but he's proved me wrong. He's played really well. So good for him. And again, Buffalo is just one of those teams, even though they're in the Eastern Conference and they play in the same state as our beloved New York Rangers. They're fun to root for, man. They
Oh,
really
yeah.
just are.
So just wait till you see where I have these teams. You're gonna be very interested at my list right here. But
You're gonna be very interested too.
onto the Detroit Red Wings, where I believed in this team too much last season and it bit me in the ass. But yeah,
I think the Red Wings, it's going to be tough for Detroit. I like a lot of their pieces. I'm a big fan of Moritz Seider. Of course, you look at the goaltending. You take a look at Ville Husso. Up front, that I believe they just extended Dylan Larkin as well. But for me, I still think that the Detroit Red Wings are a year or two away from getting where they want to be. But again, there are a number of teams, three, four teams, in fact, that could be surprise picks to move up in this division. And I think Detroit is a part of that pack. So,
like you said, there's certain pieces to like. I mean, Moritz Seider, that's a piece to love. And then you kind of look at the rest of their defense core and you're just like, Ben Sherratt, Gosh the Spear, Justin Holl, Jake Woolman, Oli Mata, Jeff Petrie.
Wallman's
It's
good. Wallman's pretty good.
all right.
I guess,
Okay. I'll go with you. I'll go with you on that one. Woolman's good, but you look at the rest of that defense core, it's just not good. It is something that held them back last season, and I think it's going to hold them back again. But here's somebody you didn't mention. They got Alex DeBrincat.
yes, they did. They brought in Alex DeBrincat over from the Ottawa Senators, and that's going to be huge for them too.
Oh yeah,
For a long time, Detroit's need that top end sniper goal scorer,
yeah,
and DeBrincat is that, and he helps in so many areas. Shades, not just goal scoring, but on the power play too. You're able
oh
to
yeah.
mix veterans like David Perron. You have the quarterback at Moritz Seider. You have DeBrincat, on one side. Again, it's going to be pretty lethal for Detroit when they get things 100% figured out. So.
Oh yeah. And Lucas Raymond is entering his age 21 season. This kid, oh my God. There are so many good young players in this league that I can't wait to break out.
100%.
Yeah, but even with DeBrincat, this team is, I think this back end is going to cost this team. That's just me.
Yeah. And the goaltending too. We'll see. We'll see how Husto holds up.
I like their goaltending tandem. I don't love it.
Yeah.
The only two pieces on this team that I love are DeBrincat and Seider. I like Cop, I like Comfer, I like Perron, I like Larkin. Okay. I'm in between like and love for Larkin, but I'm more towards like. Okay, Lucas Raymond also.
Yeah.
He's towards the. But then Daniel Sprong, he's decent. I don't know. this team's missing something.
Yep, we'll see.
On to the Stanley Cup finalist from last season, the Florida Panthers. I'm I mean, I'll kind of spoil it. I think they're going to make the playoffs again this year. I mean, you can't go wrong with Matthew Tkachuk. Carter Verhaeghe just burst out onto the scene last year with 40 goals. Still pissed I dropped him in fantasy last year because he went through a terrible fucking stretch for like 2.5 weeks. But I digress. That legitimately did cost me my fantasy league, by the way. They still got Barkov, Reinhart still there, Evan Rodriguez, solid pickup. Anton Lundell, I think he's going to have a very good season. And then this back end, other than Ekman Larson, was surprisingly good last year. Now, keep in mind, I did use those specific set of words because Ekman Larson was just signed. So,
right.
But dude, they picked up Nico Mikkola from the Rangers. Oh, holy crap! Did I love that signing for them?
I'm a big fan of Mikola after a short time with the Rangers. And again, this Florida Panthers team, man. I mean, you mentioned it, they're stacked. You look at this forward group. I mean, Barkov, what else can you say? I mean, best two-way forward in the league, you could argue. Matthew Tkachuk, I mean, his playoff performance last year, I mean, he really proved a lot of people wrong, and he led this Panthers team. He was the de facto leader, wasn't the captain, in Barkov, but again, he really had an impact on this group. Sam Bennett, Carter Verhaeghe, again, playoff performers, guys you want in your lineup when you're trying to go win a Stanley Cup. And I'm just a big fan of the forward group overall. Evan Rodriguez, I've always been a big fan of, even with his time in Pittsburgh. Anton Lundell, good young player, like you said. The back end is a little bit interesting. Oliver Ekman-Larsson really didn't look great in Vancouver.
Not
Again,
at all.
it's a low risk signing. What they pay him? $2.25 million for a year because he got bought out by the Canucks. So Dmitry Kulikov, he's been around. Josh Mahura, sure, but is there a number one defenseman on this team? I mean, I know you have Aaron Ekblad, but he's going to be injured to start the season, correct?
So yeah, there was two names that I left out. One of them was Aaron Ekblad, who is on LTIR right now, according to Cap Friendly. And the other one, who's on injured reserve right now at the moment, also on Cap Friendly, Brandon Montour, who had a great season for them last year.
Yeah.
Once they get those two back and this team is in full swing come the regular season, this is a team that could potentially win the division.
If they can stave off this early season struggles that they might endure, of course, with having those two top defensemen out, I think that, again, like you said, they'll finish towards the top of the division. And then you look at the goaltending, right? You look at Sergei Bobrovsky and Anthony Stolarz. Spencer Knight, of course, still in the player assistance program, I believe. Hope everything is going well with him. But Bobrovsky, hey, he did it again. He led this team to the Stanley Cup final. Got to give him credit where it's due.
Now, the only question mark about this team that I have, which Bobrovsky are we going to get this season?
I don't know.
He is legitimately
year by year thing, right?
The most up and down goaltender I have ever seen among starting goaltenders who have ranged from Vezina winner to how the hell did he win the Vezina? He stinks.
But it's what have you done for me lately, right?
Yeah, well, he backstopped his team to a Stanley Cup final.
He did really well, so we'll see.
We will see indeed. The Montreal Canadiens are up next, and obviously, they're in a full rebuild at the moment, clearly. How they made the freaking Stanley Cup final a few years back, I still cannot comprehend.
I didn't understand it at the time either.
Neither did I. But every
Remember,
time I think I know something, I just don't.
There's an alternate universe, Shades, where the Montreal Canadiens plays the New York Islanders in that final. The Islanders win the Stanley Cup. Remember that? I went to a Game 7 Eastern Conference final with the Lightning. It was.
I remember. I remember.
The Islanders would have crushed the Canadiens in the final.
Anybody coming out of the East would have beat the Canadiens that year.
The Rangers would have beat.
They might have. They might have. That's how bad that Canadiens team was. It's just they caught fire.
Exactly. Crazy times, but that's the bubble for you.
Yeah, seriously. God, I do not miss, dude. Those three, two
Those three
Stanley
games
Cup
against,
finals in a row. I just hate it.
yeah. But as far as this Canadians team, yes, they're rebuilding, but there's a lot
Yes.
here. Cole
Oh yeah.
Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, love this Nick Suzuki. Love that he's a captain at 24 years old. Outstanding two-way player. Slavkovsky, say what you want. I know a lot of Canadians fans are worried, much like Rangers fans are worried about Alexei
He's
Lafreniere.
19.
Give,
Relax. He's played 1 year. If
give,
he continues to be terrible for another 2, 3 years, then start to worry.
give it time, absolutely. And then the Canadians go to Colorado and acquire a pretty good player in Alex Newhook.
Oh yeah.
So again, I don't think they're necessarily going to compete for a playoff spot.
No.
You look at the back end. I mean, it's not
It
great.
it yeah, it's pretty ugly. I still like David Savard, but I mean overall,
Mike
pretty
Matthews,
ugly.
David Savard. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And the goal thing, Caden Primo, that's the guy you're looking for if you're a Canadians fan. You want to see Caden Primo become that #1 goaltender. This is his time. And between Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault, it's not really a bad, or it's not really a difficult starting position to kind of overtake. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think there's going to be pretty good improvement from this Montreal team under Marty St. Louis. So
Yeah, time will tell. We'll see. So the Ottawa Senators going are seventh on the list. And remember how much faith I put in the Senators last year, Liam?
put a lot. You put a lot.
I did put a lot of faith in the Senators last year. And I'm going to do it again this year. Because, again, dude, this is a team that's on the verge of making the playoffs. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I was wrong last year. And I'm going to stick to the same prediction I have from last year. I think they're going to make the playoffs again. They just got Jonas Corposalo in free agency. They have a very good young defensive core. You have Jake Sanderson, who broke out last year. Thomas Shabbat, if he stays healthy, two great young pieces. They just brought in Jacob Chikrin at the trade deadline last year. Great addition. Brandstrom, it has been a little bit of a mixed bag for how high he was rated as a prospect, but Hamonic is a solid addition to that back end. Artem Zub, I feel like he's kind of in the middle. But then you look at the forward group here. Oh, baby. You got the newly signed Vladimir Tarasenko. You got the stud 21-year-old Tim Stutzla. You have Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, Shane Pinto. You have Claude Giroux for 2 more years. Kubalik, if he has a good season, is a great middle six forward for them. I still think that if they want to truly compete, they're going to need to make a forward addition or two. But you look at the back end and the goalies on this team, along with the top end talent on this forward group, this is a team that could do some damage. And notice how I didn't even bring up Josh Norris yet, who's going to start the season on injured reserve and miss at least the first 3 games. If he comes back and can stay healthy, this team is going to be dangerous.
Shades. It rarely happens on the Pucks and Brews podcast. I couldn't disagree with you more.
All right. All right. Hit me.
To be honest, I think that, again, the one thing I agree with you about is that this team is 2 or 3 forwards away, and another defenseman, and a starting goaltender away from contending for a cup. I'm really not sold on Jonas Corposalo. I really wasn't a big fan, to be honest. I think if you just waited a year and just waited for a new class of goaltenders, you could have gotten somebody better than $4 million. And again, you kind of got to look at how much money in the salary cap you're allocating to your goalies. The Senators are allocating $7 million between Anton Forsberg and Jonas Corposalo, neither of which are really a #1, in my opinion. I always ask myself, and again, if you disagree, I totally understand. I want to know what you guys think too. I always base my goaltenders off, can they win me a Stanley Cup? I do not think Jonas Corposalo can go and win a Stanley Cup for the Ottawa Senators. I just don't think so. But then again, I didn't think Aiden Hill could either. So hockey is just a weird sport sometimes. But I look at the back end. I look up Chikrin and Shabbat. I think Chikrin might have been a little bit overrated amidst all of the trade talk. I think he's a very good defenseman, but I think people rated him as a number one guy. With that said, he doesn't have to be the number one guy because Thomas Shabbat is. I just don't really see a lot of depth on the back end. In the forward group, like I said, I think they're 2 to 3 forwards away. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be a bottom feeder, but I don't have as high hopes as you do.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
want to know what everyone thinks. So comment down below. Let us know.
Especially in the YouTube chat.
Mm-hmm.
So, last to round off the Atlantic Division, we have the almighty Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh my goodness. Huh?
We have the finally gets out of the first round, but supremely, extremely disappoints in the second round, Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't even know what the fuck to say about this team anymore. I don't know.
You know
They
what?
made, see, here's
Yeah.
the thing about this team. Every offseason, they make a move or two that I really like for them. But something always happens come playoff time where just the entire team is just, it's like they're disconnected and not firing on all cylinders. With that being said, I still think this is a perennial playoff team. I love the additions of Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi for this team. Two players that this team desperately needed, two types of players. I mean, yes, they have Rangers legend Ryan Reeves, sorry. And Mark Giordano is getting up there. I didn't necessarily like the Klingberg signing, but you gotta get forward. I mean, not forward. You got to get power play production, and he's going to bring that.
Yeah, Shades, you said it before. I mean, Maple Leafs are a perennial playoff team, and they are. And again, you look at the roster, you look at the forward group. You know, you didn't mention Matthew Nyes, who is a 20-year-old forward who is really impactful
Yeah.
on the Leafs, especially in that first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you go
Oh yeah.
back, Austin Matthews gets signed to an extension. Finally, all the talk until the 28-29 offseason can go away about Austin Matthews potentially leaving the Leafs. I
Hmm.
think that gives the locker room a sense of stability from their star player. And you know what? When that, is coming on the horizon, contract talks, that probably creeps into a locker room a little bit. And I think Austin Matthews put faith into the Toronto Maple Leafs roster and front office by agreeing to re-sign with the team. And I think that's only going to help, their camaraderie and the way they perform this season. John Tavares serving as the captain again. I mean, he's 33 years old. I mean, need a big year out of John Tavares. Quite frankly, he's kind of slid to the background a little bit. Willie Nylander, love Willie Nylander. Big question whether they're going to re-sign him or not. But for right now, they have him for another year. Tyler Bertuzzi, like you said, Max Domi, love those signings too. Those are playoff signings. Ryan Reeves, beloved New York Rangers legend. Miss him so very much. He just had his first fight of the season, by the way.
Nice.
The back end leaves a little bit to be desired, for me, to be honest. Like you said about John Klingberg, I didn't love the signing. I think it's overpaid a little bit. And again, Morgan Riley, sure, he's the number one guy, but past that, you're banking on a 40-year-old Mark Giordano. Sure, 3, 4 years away from removed, excuse me, from a Norris Trophy win, but still 40 years old. So you can't really bank on him to play in the top four. And Samsonov and Wall. Samsonov had a good year last year, but again, there's some question marks there. But they're a perennial playoff team, and I think this
Yeah.
could be a year where they kind of get pretty far in the playoffs. So I'm high on the Leafs this year, with all that said.
All right. So, who you got at 8 through 1?
I went crazy here in the
Oh,
division.
let me hear this.
Montreal finishing last.
You and I agree on that one.
The Boston Bruins
You and
finishing
I
second.
agree on that one.
Yeah, we do. Okay,
I'm not. I swear to God, I have the list right here.
there you go. In sixth, I have the. We're not going to agree on this one. I have the Ottawa Senators at six. Shades at five, I have the Detroit Red Wings. And Detroit, again, we spoke about it, right? They have Moritz Seider, a player we love, Dylan Larkin, a player you like and love, a player that I personally love. Young guys like Lucas Raymond. You look, at the goaltending position. Billy Husso had a very good year last year. Alex DeBrincat comes over from the Ottawa Senators as well. I think that this is a team that's on the cusp. But for me, I can't. place them any higher than that. So I look at the Tampa Bay Lightning at fourth, and that's going to come as a little bit of a surprise. But I think Tampa Bay Lightning, they're going to undergo a little bit of a dip this season. And Andre Vasilevsky, of course, being out for as long as he'll be out, and of course Jonas Johansson, who is a far cry, from Vasilevsky, of course, has NHL experience with Buffalo and Colorado. But I think that Tampa Bay is going to take a little bit of a step back this year. You have Steven Stamkos, who's disgruntled. He didn't get signed to a long-term contract extension, while all of the players around him, who have been a key component, like himself, in the three Stanley Cup victories, um, excuse me, two Stanley Cup victories. Again, got those extensions and Stamkos didn't. So I think that's gonna, hamper the team a little bit. So I'm gonna have them finishing fourth. Spoiler alert. With the wild cards, I'm still gonna have them make the playoffs. But I'm gonna have them take a little bit of a downturn. At three, I got Buffalo. Devin Levi can hold up. Buffalo, top to bottom, forward group and defense, young players, veteran players. They have that mix. They have a very good coach in Don Granato. I'm going to take them three in the division. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to say Buffalo is going to rise in this Atlantic division. Toronto at two, pretty self-explanatory. I don't think they're quite as good as Florida, and Florida, of course, is coming off of a trip to the Stanley Cup final. I'm going to have the division. But I'm very intrigued. What do you got for me, Shades?
All right. Well, obviously, we both agree on the Canadians and Bruins at 8 and 7, respectively. At number 6, I actually just switched this because I felt like I was a little too harsh to another team. But at 6, I got the Red Wings because I still think they're a year away, and that defense core is just like burning a hole in my brain with how bad it is outside of Cider. Number 5, Tampa Bay Lightning. Number 4, the Ottawa Senators. 3, the Sabres. 2, the Panthers, and I think this is the year of all years that Toronto wins the division. Because notice one thing with Toronto. Last year was the year that everybody thought they were going to lose, and I was like, no, this team's making it out of the first round. It was yet another year where they probably should have won the division, but Boston had that incredible year, and this team has just been getting unlucky as all hell in terms of trying to win their division. And I just think this is the year where they're not supposed to win it, but they're going to.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a scenario, Shades, that could happen. Let me also say, I thought that I was taking the Tampa Bay Lightning a bit low at 4, but to see you have them at 5, is
That's
definitely
bold. I'm
well,
making a bold pick here. Bless you.
edit that one out. So, uh, but I'm glad we're both on the same page with Buffalo. I see your standing. I understand your reasoning with Toronto. I could definitely see that happening. And again, you see Ottawa rising. I see Detroit rising. Good predictions on both ends.
And last but not least, Liam, we have reached the Metropolitan Division with our beloved New York Rangers. But
Yeah.
the first team on this list is the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, granted, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but we are in the second night of NHL action because we are currently recording on Wednesday, October 11th. Season started last night on Tuesday. Rangers play tomorrow, Thursday. It's technically going to be today with the day that this podcast episode's coming out. But Carolina Hurricanes are up first, and I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. This is my team to win the President's Trophy this year. Said it months ago. I'm going to say it again now. This team is just a very, very well-oiled machine from the coaching to the forward group to the defense core. They got solid goaltending, and they added Dmitry Orlov to just make this stacked defense core even more stacked. And yeah, they kept a lot of key pieces. They brought in Michael Bunting, who in my opinion is going to fit like an absolute glove on this team. And like I said, well-oiled machine. I got them, spoiler alert, winning the President's Trophy. So obviously winning this division. Oh, I know that look. Hit me.
I don't think the Carolina Hurricanes are going to win the President's Trophy. I don't think they're very good this year. I think they're still a playoff team, but I don't think they're going to be at the top of the division like they have been in past years. I'm not really wowed by this forward group. They bring in Brendan Lemieux. They bring in Michael Bunting. Of course, Bunting had, again, great years in Toronto. I'm not taking anything away from it. But again, it's the classic case of a guy performing well, a little bit late bloomer in his career, and again, getting paid. And it worries me a little bit at $4.5 million. Just saying. Just putting that out there. And, you look at Jesperi Kotkaniemi, still hasn't blossomed into that top end guy. I like Sebastian Aho, love Teuvo Teravainen, but I don't know. This roster hasn't been able to get it done over the last couple of years. Seth Jarvis, again, I really like Seth Jarvis, but again, I look at the back end. Slavin, Orlov, great players. Orlov, again, another one of those players, had a terrific year last year, but again, got paid in the offseason. What are you going to get out of Dmitry Orlov? Just putting it out there. Brady Shea, Brett Pesci, Anthony D'Angelo comes back. Is that great for your locker room? Freddie Anderson and Anthony Ralph. You have Andrei Svechnikov, who's on injured reserve after tearing his ACL late last year. So, I just don't know. I don't know about the Tampa Bay Light. Excuse me, about the Carolina Hurricanes. I think, like the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're going to fall back in their respective divisions.
All right, that's fair, but I'm still a big fan of Natchez and Teravainen and
But
Jarvis.
let me just say, I think Rod Brindamore is a top 2 coach in the league. He's great. He's
Who do you
outstanding.
got at number one? Or who do you got as the other top two?
You know who I really like, and again, you can't. Uh, Again, his resume precedes him. Bruce Cassidy. What he has done in Vegas has been outstanding. There are a lot of great coaches in the NHL, so
All right,
maybe
just wanted.
we'll do a coaches episode where
Hey, maybe. I
go a
just
little.
wanted to hear your opinion on that right off the bat. But yeah, dude, Orlov, Slavin, Burns, Pesci as your top four. That's pretty freaking good. I can't hate on that. That's a good. And like I don't know. I really like this team on paper. So and I like the way they play too because they always give us fits. I don't know. This is just a very put together team, very well coached team, and spoiler, I got him finishing first. Columbus Blue Jackets. I don't know what the frick happened last year. Line and Goudreau were back. Goudreau, I still can't believe he signed there, but that did not move the needle with just how bad of shape this team was in. Although if Line can put it together, I think they'll have an okay season. I don't see this team doing anything, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, neither do I, to be honest with you. And of course, they bring in Adam Fantilli in the draft. He falls right into their lap, with their draft selection in the first round. So, but again, you look at the rest of this forward group. They get Alexander Texier back. I was a big fan of Texier.
Oh yeah.
He comes back to the NHL this year. Jack Roslovic, okay, Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau. I don't know why Gaudreau signed there, like you said. I think Laine is going to have a better season though. Under a new coach, especially just anybody not named Mike Babcock. And I think they can just put that situation behind them. Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, 2 young players that again are waiting to break out. So we'll see if that happens. On the back end, Zach Werenski, I mean, he's underrated, man. I think he goes under the radar a little bit because he plays in Columbus. He's a number 1 defenseman over there.
Yeah.
And Spencer Martin, they claim off waivers, I believe, from the Vancouver Canucks, so he'll be the backup. And Elvis Merzlikins as the starter. So again, I don't really think there's a high ceiling for Columbus, but I think the pieces are there to build something.
Yep. I'm right there with you. On to the team that beat us last year in the playoffs, the New Jersey Devils. I mean, they're still young, they're still fast. They let's be honest, they got a solid team, got a lot of good young players. I mean, we saw it last year, and I think it's going to be the same story this year. This team's going to do some damage.
They're going to do some huge damage. And again, you look at who they bring in the offseason. The Devils, of course, bring in via trade with the Calgary Flames Tyler Toffoli. And again, you add Toffoli again to an absolutely stacked forward group. You look at Jack Hughes, you look at Jesper Bratt, who I believe was, excuse me, there's some stuff going on here in the ceiling. Excuse me. Jesper Bratt, Andre Palat, just above me here, just everything went off. But again, Eric Halla, Tyler Toffoli, big Andre Palat guy. Of course, he's got that resume, with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Timo Meyer, who they signed to an extension as well, got him at 8.8 million, and that's pretty good. If you're asking me. And again, the goaltending, is that going to hold up? Vanacek and Schmidt. Schmidt holds up against the Rangers. How's he going to hold up against the rest of the NHL? Couldn't even figure him out in the preseason. But yeah, I think the Devils are a force to be reckoned with, and they're going to finish at the top of the division again. So,
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm right there with you. On to the New York Islanders, the godforsaken New York Islanders. I mean, they still have. See, this is a weird year for them, in my opinion, because it's just like, yes, they still have a solid team, but I mean, I don't know. Like the longer Lamoriello is GM there, I lose more and more faith in this team. But I'm not quite ready to say they're not going to make the playoffs. That's literally where I'm at with this team. I'm kind of in the middle on them.
they're just a mid team, to be honest. I think that's just the best way to describe them. Bo Horvat playing alongside Matthew Barzell. Barzell finally healthy again. Bo Horvat coming off a great year, but again, in a contract year, he's in year one of his $8.5 million deal with the Islanders. So again, there's always a risk. Anders Lee, the captain, let's be honest, that's $7 million. I bet Lamoriello and the Islanders wish they could have back. Just saying. Brock Nelson came into his own last year. He was outstanding. He was, the shining bright light amidst a pretty dark Islanders season, for being honest. Casey Zizekas, Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, they're all getting old,
Yep.
32, 35, and 34 respectively. So you could say what you want about that fourth line, but again, they're getting older, and you just don't know how they're going to perform. They bring in a beloved New York Ranger, Julian Gauthier. Again, can't finish, but we'll see. We'll see what he's got. He's got the speed, he's got the talent. If he can put it together, he's a dangerous player. Oliver Wahlstrom, like Alexi Lafreniere with the Rangers, they're waiting. They're waiting for him to step up. And they got, Kyle Palmieri as well, who they really need a bounce back season out of. But again, I will say this with Ryan Pulak and Adam Pelech and Noah Dobson, those three, alongside Elias Sorokin and Semyon Varlamov, they are going to be competitive. So I'll
Mhm.
give them credit there, but I just don't know if this team is a playoff team.
Yeah, I'm on the fringe with them right now. And we are up to our beloved New York Rangers. I
Um,
said it at the beginning of the offseason. I will say it again. I thought it was a very mixed bag with the free agent signings, but I mean, this team still has Mika, still has Kreider. As much as I fucking hate how he plays every game, he scores goals. We still have Shesty. We still got Fox and Lindgren, an emerging Keandre Miller who needs to step up defensively, to be honest. We still have Truba, who also needs to step it up defensively, to be honest, but we know what he can be. And I I actually I'm looking at this forward group on paper. Am I puzzled that Jimmy Vesey is looking to be like a healthy scratch? Yes, but it's a decent lineup, man. I gotta admit.
I love the forward group for the Rangers this year. Of course, Panarin and Zibanejad, each coming off disappointing playoffs. Chris Kreider, again, 2 seasons removed from his 50-goal season. This is a really good player in Kreider, but he needs to step it up here. And he's amidst what, a $6.5 million deal. He's got what, 4 years left on his contract. So yeah, 4 years left. So again, we just need Kreider to maintain that consistency. Alexi Lafreniere,
This is a make or break year for him.
you
Let's
need
be
to see,
honest.
you need to see something.
Yep.
You need to see something here. And I got to be honest, I know you didn't watch much of the preseason, admittedly, but he did not look good. Uh,
I heard.
yeah, and again, the preseason is your shot, right? All that talk of Gerard Gallant not giving Alexi Lafreniere top six time and power play time, that all goes out the window in the preseason. Lafreniere is a first line winger in the preseason, and he just wasn't that impactful. But again, it's the regular season. Guys don't usually go 100%. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and see how he is tomorrow against Buffalo. They bring in Blake Wheeler, Will Cooley. I think they're going to be a great complement to each other. You have a veteran in Wheeler, and you have, the rookie in Will Cooley, two players that play similar styles. I think that's going to complement the bottom six. And again, like you said, the Rangers are at a point where Jimmy Vesey who was arguably their best two-way player last year, or one of their best two-way players last year, is going to be a healthy scratch for this team probably at some point in the early portion of the season. You look at the back end, Trouba, I think we're going to see a bounce back year out of Trouba. I really do.
We
I think
better.
it couldn't really get any worse from what we saw last year. So,
Yeah, we're gonna do a deeper dive into the Rangers specifically next episode, but
yeah,
go on.
for sure. Fox, number one guy. And again, the defense is really good. Where I'm concerned, Shades, not concerned with Igor. I'm concerned with Jonathan Quick. And believe it or not, your backup can cost you. I know
I'm
Igor.
very concerned with Jonathan Quick.
Yeah, Igor will play the boatload of games, but I think the Rangers have to be prepared and have a backup plan just in case Jonathan Quick comes in and in his first three starts, like you can't put him in the net. So I know you got Dylan Garand in the AHL. We'll see. He played for Canada at the World Juniors, got some starts with them. So we'll see. We saw him in the preseason a little bit as well. So maybe that's a little bit of foreshadowing. But that's my only concern with the Rangers. I like Peter Laviolette taking over as
Yes,
coach.
so do
Uh,
I.
the forward group is good. Like I said, the defense is good, and Igor is Igor. So
Yeah, there's definitely still some question marks. Obviously, being Lafreniere being the key one. Philip Hedl, whether or not he's going to play second or third line center, how Wheeler and Benino are going to fit onto this team.
Taco's got to become a number one winger, top line winger this year, and I think he's going to.
I believe he can. I would honestly, with the amount of terrible luck we've had with drafting the last couple of years, I would be ecstatic if he turned into a high-end second line winger.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm
We'll see.
expecting him to have a big year for sure.
Yeah. Now, the only obviously we all know Igor went from winning the Vezina to, let's face it, having a drop off last year where in my personal opinion I thought he was pretty bad first half of last season before he picked it up. Is which Igor are we going to get at the start of the season? The Vezina winner, what happened last year, or somewhere in between, which is where I'm going to set my expectation at.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. I'm really happy that Igor went out and said and was admittedly open and honest about his season last year and about how it was below his standards. And he said it, I believe, in preseason media conferences. You're going to see a different Igor this year. So I think that Igor is going to elevate his play, to be honest. And I think if we run into a situation like I just mentioned, where Jonathan Quick, doesn't become playable, I think Igor is prepared and in a situation where he can play a majority of the games until you can get somebody in there that can back him up adequately. So,
Yeah.
but I think he's going to have a great year. I'm not anticipating any
No.
disappointment from Igor this year.
No, I'm expecting a very good season out of him. It just goes to show you how many fans took Lundqvist's string of 920 plus save percentage seasons consecutively for granted, because not even Igor was able to do that for 3 years. So,
yep, and Igor's fantastic. So,
yes, I mean, it just goes to show you. I mean, when you have a special talent, you have a special talent, and that's exactly what Lundqvist was and what Igor is. Moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers, the somehow not basement team of the division last year, because I'm pretty sure that went to the Blue Jackets, if I'm remembering correctly. This team is yet another team that's in the middle of a full-on rebuild. I don't know where it all went wrong for this team, but they just kept making mistake after mistake after things were looking good 2-3 years ago. And this team's going nowhere. What are your thoughts?
well, Danny Briere has quite a job in front of him, Philadelphia
Oh, yeah.
Flyers. I will say this, but I will also say that there are pieces here, and I look at this forward group. Noah Cates was great last year, coming in. Again, he's signed to a pretty good deal, $2.625 million deal for the next 2 years. You look at Owen Tippett, who came over in the Claude Giroux trade, a little bit of a late bloomer, but again, I think he's going to be a good player in this league. Morgan Frost, big fan of Morgan Frost. Again, I think he needs to step it up a little bit this year, but again, he's going to have that opportunity with this Flyers team. Bobby Brink. How can you not love Bobby Brink? Tyson Forster as well. The back end, it's a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Mark
But
Stahl,
besides the GOAT, Mark Stahl.
besides the and there's word going around that the Flyers are shopping Carter Hart, and you could speculate the reasons as to why they're doing that. And again, when you look what they have behind them, it's Urson Samuel, okay, and Felix Sandstrom. So this team is going to be in the basement of the Metro. So pretty simple, and it stinks for John Tortorella because I think we're approaching his final years as head coach because he's not taking another job after this.
No, most likely not, unfortunately. But it is what it is. On to the Washington Capitals. Ovi is chasing down Gretzky's goal record. While he is definitely not getting it this year. I mean, he's getting older. I mean, let's be honest, his level of play is deteriorating. I'm just let's call a spade here. But they still got some good they still got some good pieces. Carlson is still solid on the back end. Nick Jensen was a good pickup by them. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, solid defenseman. Rasmus Sandin, I think, went a little under the radar for them after the trade deadline last year. Fahavari is honestly not a solid, solid, not a bad option. And then Alexeyev, they're hoping he can take a step forward at 23 years old. Then the forward group concerns me along. Actually, no, the goaltending doesn't concern me too much. Kemper is a good goalie, but he's not a great goalie. But the forward group leaves a lot to be desired because Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, and Oshie, they're all getting older. Wilson is still 29, but he just signed an extension. He's not going anywhere. At this point, he's probably their best trade chip, but like I just said, not going anywhere. I did like the Dylan Strome pickup, and then after that, it kind of drops off.
Yeah, I think this team is better than people are giving them credit for, to be honest. And again, we look at this forward group, and Ovechkin is Ovechkin. Backstrom, of course, coming off of his hip issues, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Kuznetsov, again, that might be a trade chip for me. I think I'll say that Kuznetsov is probably the biggest trade chip on this team. He's a number one center. If they're out of the race, I wouldn't put it past the Capitals to go and trade him. TJ Oshie, another trade piece. I mean, what team would not love TJ Oshie? I think it would be tough for the Capitals to give up on him and go and trade him, but they could head in rebuilding direction here. And I think the main goal isn't necessarily to make the playoffs. I think the main goal is to lead Ovechkin to surpass Wayne Gretzky in his goal record and try to rebuild at the same time. And hopefully, by the time Ovechkin is closing out his career, you can put together a competitive team and try to go one last chance at a Stanley Cup. But I will say this: look at the back end. There is potential there. John Carlson, huge fan. Like you said about Rasmus Sandin, that was a steal that they got at the trade deadline from the Maple Leafs. It made the Leafs better, but at the same time, Rasmus Sandin is a guy that's going to be a staple at defense core for Washington for years. And I agree with you on Darcy Kemper. It's not a bad tandem. Him alongside Charlie Lindgren, our beloved New York Rangers Ryan Lindgren's brother. So yeah, so for me, I think they're going to be competitive, not necessarily a playoff team, but competitive.
Yeah, see, I mean, I kind of did the long way of saying this when I was going through everything, but I basically highlighted I like their goalie tandem, I like their defense. Forward group, yeah, I'm not sold on at all as a collective unit.
Yep, 100%.
And last but not least, on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who just got Erik Karlsson, and I'm still not over that because I have to root against him now. I'm still not over that. You want to know what else I'm still not over? The Rangers losing last year, but I digress. I mean, this is a Pittsburgh team that's another year older. I mean, let's be honest, they've made some very bad moves since their back-to-back cup wins. And I just look at this forward group. While there are some good names, this roster does not strike fear in me anymore like it used to.
It really doesn't me either. And, if Erik Karlsson wasn't acquired in the offseason, I would probably say they'd be towards the bottom alongside their statements in the Philadelphia Flyers. So, again, I look at this roster. Big Jake Gensel fan, of course, Sid, Malkin is Malkin. Brian Rust, I've always been a fan of Ryan Rust. They bring in Riley Smith, which I think you could probably say is their biggest acquisition.
Yeah, that was a great move by them.
That was a good move. Noah Chari as well. Lars Eller. Those are proven winners. Eller, of course, with the Capitals in 2018, going to the Stanley Cup final and winning the Stanley Cup. And of course, Achari in 2019 with the Boston Bruins, who made it to the Cup final. Besides that, a little bit left to be desired on the back end. If Carlson and Letang can work together and find some magic, there's potential here. I love that the Penguins went long term with Tristan Jarry. Great move. I think letting him go to market would have been a mistake. And they have Nedeljkovic, who's not a bad backup. So I'm not as down on the Penguins as I've been in past years, despite last night's performance.
Yeah, I'm still confused on why the hell they let I think it was Dumoulin this past offseason walk. If it wasn't Dumoulin, it was the other top four defensemen they let walk. My brain has been so fried the last few months that my hockey knowledge from everything that we went over at the beginning of the summer is just like gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I just took a look at the forward group on cap friendly. This is not including the season opening injured reserve. There's three forwards under the age of 30, which is concerning to me. And look, Carlson is definitely going to help on the power play and a little bit 5-on-5, but he's not going to help defensively.
No, he's not going to help defensively at all.
Yeah, no, it's like this team didn't improve at all defensively. Well, yes, Carlson is going to provide a spark on offense, which is what they needed. But something they also needed was defensive help, and he goes in the complete opposite direction on that. So I don't know, man. Riley Smith was great pickup, but I don't know about this team, man. I mean, they finally missed the playoffs last year, and I don't see it being any different this year. That's just me.
You ready?
I am ready. Who you got at number 8?
Columbus.
Yep, me too. Actually, no, I got Flyers at 8.
Flyers at 8. Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm trying to make some bold decisions, hoping I'm wrong. Or excuse me, hoping to what I said earlier.
Right. 7, I have the Flyers. So you probably have Columbus 7, right?
Yes, sir.
At 6, I got the Caps.
Same.
I was honestly going back and forth between the Caps and the Islanders, and to be honest, in a lot of ways, they're interchangeable. But for me, Ilya Sorokin pushes the Islanders ahead, and I hit them at 5.
So you got the Islanders at 5?
Yeah.
I got the Penguins at 5.
Okay. And I have Pittsburgh at 4. And that's where we differ. But again, I think the Islanders and Pittsburgh are going to be close, as they are most years. So
Yeah, I think those would probably be like the most two interchangeable teams because it's like you look. I'm going to say the same thing about the Islanders I just said about the Penguins. It's a roster where there's some good players, but it doesn't strike a whole lot of fear.
well, let me put it this way. I have Pittsburgh at 4, but my 2 wild card teams are coming out of the Atlantic.
I like it. Interesting. I have
Detroit.
the Islanders at 4. I have not made up my mind about my 8th
Gotcha.
playoff team yet. So,
Well, at number 3 shades, we're differing here. Carolina.
yeah, we are definitely differing here.
Who do you got 3?
Rangers.
Why is that?
Well, to be honest, I saw how well we were all watching when they went out of the playoffs last year. Had some guys that I wanted to keep that they let go. Like I said, it was a mixed bag with free agency. I don't think they did overly well. I do like the Eric Gustafsson signing though. He will definitely help on the power play. But I don't know, just with Igor's up and down season last year, it's just like I wasn't confident in putting them any higher. So I don't know.
Fair enough.
There was just N plus Lafreniere and Kako, new coach, possibly getting off to a slow start because that's been a theme with the Rangers with new coaches the last several years. So I think that's putting them third is a safe pick.
At two shades, New Jersey.
I have I also have New Jersey at 2.
Yeah, I think New Jersey fits at two. And of course, that means I have the Rangers winning the division.
And well, obviously,
They got to figure it out. Kako, Lafreniere, the Ahito, they all got to come together, but I think they will. And, Mika, I think, is going to have a huge year. I think Truba's going to bounce back. I think Adam Fox is a perennial Norris Trophy candidate. And Igor is going to have Igor's best season yet.
yeah,
And they might get off to a slow start. But remember in 2014 when we got off to a slow start on that West Coast trip and we got slaughtered by San Jose 7-1 when Marty Biron got beat by Tomas Hertl between the legs?
yeah.
Remember that game? And then we went over to the Stanley Cup final against the Kings later that season. So again, you never know.
Hey, we finished third in the division that year too, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we did. But no, the Rangers winning the division here, and I have New Jersey at two. So
All right. Yeah, no, I couldn't put them any higher because we were talking a lot last season. I thought the team was playing significantly more up and down hockey than a lot of people were giving them credit for.
mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I need to see a gigantic step from consistent overall better play for me to look at them as a legitimate threat to run away with the division.
We'll see. See.
We will see indeed. And holy shit, we're over an hour and 40 minutes into this.
Been a long one, Shades. It's been a long one. And believe it or
Been
not, Shades said to me before this episode that it's not going to be as long this time as the last one. We have set a new record.
You want to know what I think got us off on the wrong foot?
What's that?
Instead of just going, all right, we're picking a division and then, okay, who's going to finish first through eighth and then why quickly, we basically talked about each individual team and then did a separate ranking.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. And plus, it's on par for our season prediction episodes prior
I
to the season every year. So,
can't wait to see how wrong we are, huh, Shades?
yeah, seriously. And that's my thought process going into the playoffs every year. I've gotten all 8 playoff predictions right literally one time.
I hope this year's the year.
I've
At
gotten it.
least for one of us. At least for one of us.
I got it right one time, and it was the 2022 playoffs, which I was shocked. Take a guess at the only other time I got 7 out of 8.
Oh, man. We were doing Pucks and Brews.
No, Pucks and Brews was not a thing yet. I'll give you a hint. Neither was backup blue shirts.
2016?
Nope.
2015?
Nope.
Before, after? 2017?
Nope.
2019?
Nope.
2018?
No.
2013?
Nope.
2014?
Yes.
2014. Gotcha. Well, you predicted just to win the cup, so or to go to the cup.
That was the year I had the Penguins beating us in the second round, which they probably should have, but that's not
Well,
what happened.
they're up three.
And that was the first year I legitimately did playoff predictions. And of course, the one series I get wrong, game 7 overtime. God damn it. Wild and Avalanche.
Oh, my goodness.
That was such an awesome playoffs and just an awesome season.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I am let's finish the coffee here. Why not? Because I got this much left.
I think I'm done here.
Yeah, so those were our season predictions. I gotta friggin' I'll favorite the screenshots I took of my predictions, and then we'll revisit this at the end of the season to just see how wrong we really were or how right we were. So
Indeed.
yeah, in the meantime, everybody enjoy the start of the NHL season. We got some games underway right now. And before I end this episode, there was a piece of information that was released during our predictions, and that is Owen Power signing an 8-year deal, I believe, with the Buffalo Sabres.
Wow. What was the AAV from that?
I have to well, I had it. We gotta bring that back up real quick. Gotta bring that back up real quick. And of course, nobody posted in the fucking group chat. Okay. The one hockey group chat I'm in where everybody's on top of everything, nobody says shit about it. Okay. That's wonderful. Hold on. Stand by. Stand by. AAV 7-year contract, average annual value of 8.35 million.
An overpay right now, but won't be an overpay in a few years.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. Kid's got a bright future, and the Sabres in general have a bright future. But that's it. We've done enough. We've talked enough. It's been over an hour and 45 minutes. This legitimately, if it's not the longest episode ever, it's right up there. But as always, this has been Pucks and Brews. I almost said backup blue shirts. I'm so tired. This has been Pucks and Brews, episode number 48. As always, I've been your host, Michael Shades Sparacino, alongside Liam the Chillmaster Godimer. And we'll probably be back next week. I'm not going to set a date again, but we will be back very soon, definitely within 2 weeks. And yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else?
That's all I got. Let's see how our predictions shake out.
Yep. Let's see how they shake out indeed. Enjoy, everyone.
See ya.